Salutations and greetings, EgoHackers. Welcome to today's video where we're going to be discussing the inferior function. The inferior function is the source of every person's anxiety and insecurity. It reveals where their deepest vulnerability lies. It causes every person to overcompensate and go extra hard with that function in order to mitigate that anxiety that they feel. The growth path for the inferior function is to become humble, to allow courage, and then the inferior becomes aspirational, which means that it can become one of the most powerful expressions of any function in our whole psyche, the 8 inferior functions. Extroverted thinking inferior is anxious about what other people think. So INFPs and ISFPs worry that others won't think highly of them. They have an inferiority complex regarding their own status. So they're anxious to share their opinion to overcompensate because they fear that they could lose their respect and status. TI inferior is anxiety about a person's own thinking. So ENFJs and ESFJs, regardless of how brilliant they may be, have an anxiety about them not being intelligent. So they tend to voice their thinking first and not listen to other people. FE inferior is anxiety about how other people feel. This means that INTPs and ISTPs are socially anxious. They feel anxious about being socially accepted, and they have a general uneasiness about handling other people's emotions and values. They also struggle to value themselves independently of how others feel about them. They're anxious that they're not helpful or useful enough to others. They rely on other people for their own sense of self-worth. FI inferior is anxiety about someone's own value, emotions, morals. ENTJs and ESTJs feel a near constant sense of lack and uselessness. They're afraid that they're bad people, that they're unworthy and aren't committed to the right values. This also means that ENTJs and ESTJs are anxious about expressing themselves emotionally, and they often have struggle with really knowing who they authentically are because it's so hard and uncomfortable for them to look within. Extroverted intuition inferiors are anxious about bad consequences looming in the future, other people's intentions, and not being desirable to others. So ISTJs and ISFJs have a fear of what is possible. This is part of why they can come across as so traditional. They're protecting against anxiety about the future. So they're often scared of people's destructive and reckless intentions as well, so then they can isolate and be a little bit avoidant of others. And any inferior means that ISTJs and ISFJs are afraid that they're not wanted by others. So in order to compensate for that, they go out of their way to maintain their health, their strength, and their vitality well into their age. Introverted intuition inferior. So ESTPs and ESFPs are anxious about making decisions. Saying yes to one decision means saying no to countless others. They're worried that there won't always be a path forward for them. So this can make them flaky and unreliable. They may be committed one moment and then go back on that commitment the next. NI inferior makes ESTPs and ESFPs feel lost while being tormented by their past mistakes. They can be paralyzed while making decisions and often struggle to move forward in life with hope. They're afraid to want anything. SE inferior. INFJs and INTJs are anxious about others abandoning them. SE inferior also fills the INJs with performance anxiety. They believe that others will only stick around for them if they perform well. This fear of abandonment rules the decisions of many INFJs and INTJs. Like NE inferior, SE inferior can make INJs recluses. They're so sensitive to rejection that they feel rejected by default. SE inferior also makes the INTJ and INFJ feel like they are incapable, incompetent, and ineffective when it comes to manipulating the physical world. This can cause them to overcompensate in their performance, becoming obsessed with their performance and pouring everything into improving that. SI inferior. ENTPs and ENFPs are anxious about being uncomfortable with incoming sensations, and they're also afraid of being weak. So they are anxious about their own comfort level. Often chronically uncomfortable, they are extremely sensitive to incoming stimuli of food, of drink, temperature, touch, or texture. And because of their sensitivity, they feel weak by default and are unsure if they have what it takes to endure. ENTPs and ENFPs are also the hypochondriacs of the 16 personalities. While the inferior function is a source of great anxiety for all people, its path to growth and liberation is that it can become our greatest strength. Through attention and humility, we can transform the inferior into our greatest psychological asset. Where we are weakest, we can become strongest. So the next time you feel fearful or anxious, check to see if it's something regarding your inferior function. The inferior and the nemesis, the topic of the next video, are the two sources of worry and anxiety within our minds. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below, and subscribe so you don't miss any content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.